Sometimes the answer to the question that we're seeking that would unravel the entire deception of January 6th can be answered by one question. And I'm going to show you a picture right here on the screen. This is the January 6th gallows man. The January 6th gallows, you can see behind him, it looks like 2x4s nailed together with a makeshift noose. This was erected outside of the Capitol on January 6th, and it was this gallows that became the linchpin of the mainstream media narrative early on in the day on January 6th. In fact, I want to read you a headline from the New York Times that best encapsulates how the mainstream media used this apparatus that was built outside of the Capitol to vilify everyone who thought that something fishy had happened during the 2020 presidential elections. The New York Times headline, this is actually from June 16th, 2022. So this was not immediately after, but this is a perfect example of how the mainstream media used this. The headline is "The Meaning of the January 6th Gallows." And the subheadline says, "A gallows and noose built in front of the Capitol on January 6th, 2021 clearly conveyed a threat of physical violence." And it was on this gallows, pun intended, that the mainstream media hung their narrative. This proved beyond any shadow of a doubt to the mainstream media that you and I were violent, that those outside of the Capitol were all insurrectionists who wanted to overthrow the U.S. government, who were domestic terrorists who belonged in prison for the rest of their lives, that President Trump's words at that rally, regardless of the fact that he called for peaceful protests, were actually a dog whistle calling for violence. That did not matter to the mainstream media because they had this photo. Gallows man. Gallows man and his 2x4s nailed together with this makeshift noose. It looks like rope from Home Depot. And this is what I want to say to you today. Why do we not know the identity of that man? How is it possible that we don't know the identity of that man? 4.5 years later, every other person, besides one, has been identified regarding any role whatsoever in January 6th. Grannies have been hunted down by FBI agents. People's homes, their backyards have been violated by federal law enforcement swatting their houses. But this man we can't identify. There's one other person whose identity remains hidden to this day. And if you figure out the identity of this person, and many people speculate that the government knows who the January 6th pipe bomber is, you unravel the identity of that person, and you have unraveled the entire thing. The entire deep state plot against you on January 6th, 2021 is unraveled.